Oke, silakan Bu. Bu Irma, silakan dimulai, Bu.
Pak Amirnya udah ada, Pak Ajat.
Oh iya, belum ada, Bu. Belum hadir, Bu.
Tunggu sebentar mungkin ya, Bu ya.
Sebentar,
Hapus ya.
Pak Amirnya soalnya.
Halo.
Baik, kita mulai ya.
Oke, baik.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat siang dan salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Yang terhormat Kepala Pusat Pengembangan Sumber Daya Manusia P2SDM LPPM IPB University, Bapak Dr. Amiruddin Saleh. Yang kami hormati Sekretaris P2SDM LPPM IPB University, Bapak Dr. Warcito. Yang kami hormati narasumber Bapak Profesor Mike Lawson. Yang kami hormati moderator kita, Ibu Dr. Yulina Eva Riani, SPMED. Yang kami hormati para peserta webinar. Kami mengucapkan terima kasih atas partisipasi Bapak dan Ibu yang telah berkenan mengikuti acara ini, serta hadirin yang kami muliakan. Webinar dengan tema Research Methodology and How to Publish a Good Quality Journal Article pada hari ini, tanggal 22 Juli 2022 akan segera dimulai dengan acara sebagai berikut. Pembukaan, kata pembuka dari Kepala P2SDM, webinar, pemberian penghargaan, dan penutup. Baiklah, sebelum acara kita mulai, kita menundukkan kepala sejenak untuk berdoa menurut agama dan kepercayaan masing-masing. Berdoa dimulai. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Berdoa selesai. Bapak Ibu yang kami banggakan, dengan sikap sempurna kita menyanyikan lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Bapak, Ibu, serta hadirin yang berbahagia. Kita simak kata pembuka dari Kepala Pusat Pengembangan Sumber Daya Manusia P2SDM LPPM IPB University. Kepada yang terhormat Bapak Dr. Amiruddin Saleh, kami silakan.
Oke, suara saya terdengar Bu Haja?
Bagus Pak, silakan dilanjut.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Thank you, Dr. Eva, for let me deliver my welcome speech to audience and also to our speaker, Professor Mike Lawson. I would like to extend a special welcome to our guest of honor, Professor Mike, Professor at College Education of Flinders University, Australia. Thank you for your time to share with us here, Professor. Terima kasih. And also, it is wonderful to see everyone here on our webinar series 4 Budaya Mutu University Perguruan Tinggi about research methodology and how to publish a good quality journal article. Laporan Dr. Wacito, Ketua Panitia, konfirmasi kehadiran ada sebanyak 1.284 orang peserta. Prianya 526, pemailnya 758, terdiri dari dosen dan peneliti. Saya lihat wajah-wajahnya yang para senior, tersebar dari Pulau Sumatera hingga Papua. Juga teman-teman dari Mahkamah Konstitusi Republik Indonesia, dari UTM, Malaysia, dan BRIN. Can implement it with producing research journal Scopus, index moreover key 1 or key 2 index. Hadirin peserta webinar yang dirahmati Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Demikian beberapa hal yang bisa saya sampaikan di acara webinar P2SDM Budaya Mutu Series 4. Selamat diskusi, sharing smart di siang ini. Semoga dapat menambah wawasan dan jejaring kerja bagi kita bersama. Amin ya robbal alamin. Billahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Silakan.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih kepada Bapak Dr. Amiruddin Saleh atas kata pembukanya. Baiklah Bapak dan Ibu serta hadirin yang berbahagia. Acara selanjutnya adalah webinar dengan tema Research Methodology and How to Publish a Good Quality Journal Article, yang akan dipandu oleh moderator kita, yaitu Ibu Dr. Yulina Eva Riani, SPMED. Beliau adalah Ketua Divisi Penelitian dan Pengembangan SDM di P2SDM LPPM IPB University. Kepada Ibu Dr. Yulia Eva Riani, kami silahkan.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih banyak Ibu Haja Irma, our beloved Master of Ceremony. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I thank you to each one of you present today. It's a moment of pleasure to welcome the guests who are present here to attend this online seminar. His Excellency, the head of the Center of Human Resource Development, IPB University, Bapak Dr. Amiruddin Saleh, thank you for the speech and for the opening, Pak Amir. And then respectable the Secretary of Center of Human Resource Development, IPB University, Bapak Warcito. And then of course, the honorable of all of the participants of the seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Yulina Ivariani. I'm a moderator of today's seminar. Today, we are going to have a seminar focusing on research methodology and how to publish a good quality journal article. So as the report, like Bapak Amiruddin mentioned earlier, that we already have like approximately 1,284 participants who registered to the seminar, but probably we already have 208 participants who are attending at the moment on Zoom meeting, but probably it will be coming many more, because at the moment it's still Friday pray, Professor Mike Lawson, so it's obligatory for male usually, so probably after this more participants will come. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we already have Professor Mike Lawson here as a speaker for the seminar today. So Professor Mike Lawson, for about 60 minutes, he will share with us how to conduct a robust quality of research. And I guess it's not only quantitative research methodology, but also he will also share and present about the qualitative research methodology. And at the end, the session, he will present how, or probably the tips or the strategy, how to publish a good quality journal article. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, let me introduce our speaker today. So Professor Mike Lawson, he is a professor at the College of Education, Psychology and Social Work, Flinders University, South Australia. He accomplished Bachelor of Arts at Monash University, Australia back in 1964, as well as his Diploma in Education from the same university, Monash University, Australia in 1965. He finished his Masters of Education at the University of Alberta, Canada in 1973, and his PhD at the same university, the University of Alberta, Canada in 1976. And he already published numbers of books, book chapters, journal articles, and many more. So I'm not going to mention one by one what he already published, but I guess it's time for us to enjoy his presentation for about 60 minutes from now. So, so I think allow me to welcome the speaker, His Excellency Professor Mike Lawson. So Professor Mike Lawson, the time is yours.
Thank you, Yulina. You can hear me?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Now, the focus, as I understood it, was on the writing for publication. So I'm going to talk mainly about that today. And if there is further interest in the talk that I gave recently that Dr. Yulina organized, we can do that later on. But let me show you where I am coming from. I'm coming from Adelaide, and Adelaide is the land of the indigenous people called the Kaurna. And the Kaurna, as members of the indigenous Aboriginal tribes, those people have lived in Australia for about 60,000 years. So people like me, who are more from a European heritage, are very recent arrivals. And I pay my honor and respect to the people of the Kaurna people of Adelaide, who still look after our land. And our lands, like many lands in the world, now need very careful looking after because we are in a very challenging time in the world. This is the university, and I think Dr. Julina is probably very familiar with the view of the university. I come from a suburb in Adelaide called Glenalta, and Glenalta is, like many parts of Australia, a place with large gum trees, and sometimes you see in the gum trees we find animals called koalas. They are native animals and they roam around our neighborhood. They eat just eucalyptus leaves. All right, that's where I come from. Now, I'm wondering if anybody who is attending is from any of these places. Bukit Tinggi, Padang, Palembang, Jakarta, Ubud. Anybody from there?
Yes, that's Ibu Dina.
Gina is from, and Tisna. That's good. One of my close colleagues in Adelaide, Dr. Darmawan, is from Ubud, and he is a very important part of our research team at the University of Adelaide and Flinders University. So he comes from Ubud. I have listed these places because these are places I have visited in Indonesia. Bukit Tinggi, I don't think there is probably a university at Bukit Tinggi, but it is a beautiful place. Padang, I have been there to the university, similarly to Palembang and Jakarta, and I have visited Ubud as a tourist. So let us begin talking about our topic today. This is what I am going to argue about writing for publication. You need to prepare your research right from the start of thinking about the research. You need to prepare that carefully because that is the thing that will provide you with something good to write. I'm going to talk about using groups. Groups are very important in writing. I will talk about the advice that we can gather from publishers. I will also spend some time showing you some of the techniques that I notice that good writers use that we can learn from. I will spend a little bit of time talking to you about the importance of outlining your argument and using easily available technology in Microsoft Word that can help you with that. Going back to the notion of the group, it's important before you submit anything for writing that you have it reviewed by your colleagues. And then, as you will already probably be aware, when we submit something for publication, we can have a number of possible outcomes. We need to be prepared for those. So let's start on that. What I'd like you to do first is do some writing. Just one sentence. On a piece of paper, write down one sentence that sets out clearly a research question you would like to answer. One sentence that sets out clearly a research question that you would like to answer. Now, when you've finished your sentence, I would like you to send it to one of the other participants today. Just pick one of the other participants and send your sentence, so that I hope that you will see that I made an assumption that isn't going to work out, that we might be together in groups. But if we're not in groups, we can use the participants in this Zoom session, because we will come back to that sentence later on. All right, that's what you are researching. That's very important. So the first thing that I want to stress about writing, and of course, what I am talking about writing for good quality publication, these are my views. These are views that I have formed in interaction with journals, in interactions with colleagues, in reviewing articles for journals and reviewing research applications for grants and so forth. So I will not provide you with all the possible ways in which you can prepare your writing, but I hope that what I do suggest to you will start you thinking about ways that you can prepare for your writing. The key, as I said before, is if you see down the bottom of this slide, that the writing really begins with your research design. Your paper begins with your research design. So you cannot write a good paper, a good quality paper, if the research design is not of good quality. If you do not have sufficient data, you do not have the appropriate research questions, if you do not have the appropriate participants in your research or the appropriate research methods, it will be difficult to write a good quality paper. So this is absolutely crucial. The methods, that's why research methodology is so important. The way that you design your research is going to impact on what you can write. I will stress several times, as I've anticipated, the importance of using your colleagues in helping you both to design your research and to write. It is very important that you see, I think as a university, as a college, you see that the publications that emerge from your college can be stimulated by group action. If you can help your colleagues with their publications and they can help you with yours, that's very important. And that happens all across the world, I think, with people who are writing for publication. They rarely just keep their publications and their drafts to themselves. So if we're going to design good quality research, we need to have good quality research questions, like the question that you've just written down. Needs to be clear, needs to be a question that can be answered so that we can see procedures that we can use to answer that question. It needs to be theoretically sound, based upon a theory that is going to enable you to generate hypotheses or expectations. The research questions need to cover the research issues, and they need to be logically ordered. Once you have specified the research questions, then you must use appropriate research procedures and appropriate selection of participants, appropriate data analysis techniques, both qualitative and quantitative, and then analyze that data carefully and appropriately to answer the research questions that you've set up. So remembering research questions is important because, in a way, when we write an article, we are saying to all the readers, here is a research question, and I'm going to try to tell you an answer to that question. That's what a paper is. It's an answer to one question or several research questions. That's what you're trying to do when you publish your papers in a journal. You're trying to tell the readers of that journal what is the suggested answer to those questions. All right, we'll leave the research design there, but keep in mind that that is the start of your writing. It is important and useful, I think, to use a writing group and also a reading group, and to use these several times if necessary. You can use a group of colleagues as you are planning your research, but as you are writing, you can also use that group. Now, I'll tell you how we have organized writing groups over several years at our university. We set up a small number of maybe 4 or 5 in a group, or 6, and we try to have one experienced writer in that group, usually the leader. So maybe a leader who is an experienced writer, and maybe 5 or 6 other people who are more novice writers. We set aside 1 hour each week, and we meet for 1 hour, and we try to stick to that timetable. And during that hour, 3 of the people in the group make a presentation, or 3 people in the group get 20 minutes each for us to give feedback on their writing. So the 20 minutes is for feedback on the writing, and the presentation is usually sent around by email at least 2 days before the meeting. And it might be 1 or 3, up 2 or 3 pages. So a small section of writing. So if I am a member of those groups, I participate in the group, using that group to give me feedback on a paper I am writing. So I take a section of the paper I am writing, and I prepare it as best I can, and I then send it via email to my colleagues who are in the group. And then when the meeting occurs, I will get feedback along with 2 other members of the group, and I will get 20 minutes. People can talk to me for 20 minutes about how to improve my writing, or other things that I could be saying, or things that are not clear, or references that they've read that I should look at. And so we then, after 20 minutes, we swap to the next person, and then there's 20 minutes feedback for that person, and then for the last person, and then at the end of the hour, we stop. And we identify that the next meeting that we have next week for the 1 hour will involve 3 other people. It's I find a very useful way to increase the number of publications emerging from a department or from a college. So you have an experienced writer, maybe one of your senior academics, and then you have maybe 5 or 6 junior people, or other, they don't have to be just juniors or new people, and they meet regularly, and maybe you meet for 6 weeks, and then you stop and have a rest, and maybe take it up in the next semester again. I wonder whether there are any questions that people would like to raise about groups.
I guess we're going to give the opportunity for everyone to ask the question at the end of the session, Professor Lawson.
All right. All right. So if you do have any, maybe just put them on the chat, or I don't know, Yulina, could some people send their questions to you?
Yes, yes, sure.
And then you could identify, because there will be a couple of other sections where I think questions might be useful. So if you have questions, maybe send a question to Dr. Yelena, and then when we have a chance for questions, she could ask me about those.
Sure.
All right. When you are preparing for publishing, you are going to send your paper to a particular publisher. Many publishers are commercial enterprises. And they probably will be names that are familiar to you, but they are businesses that prepare journal articles. Some are associations, professional associations that also publish, but all of those provide you with advice. And I think a good place to start, if you're thinking of writing for a particular journal, then I would go to the website for that journal. So there's an example now on the screen. I have recently prepared a paper that I sent to this journal, Teaching and Teacher Education. You see, there is some quite useful information about that journal. You can get some from this line. You can get some information about the quality of the journal from its site score and its impact factor. But on this line here, there is quite useful information, and part of that is the guide for authors. Now, those are always worth reading. You can, for this journal, you can see that there is a PDF file that you can download, but those guides will take you through all of these issues, talking about ethics, the use of particular language, and funding sources, and how they're going to review your paper. And then they give you some information about how you might structure the article. And some journals will have very particular advice that you must follow, in that let's say you must have a title that is in a certain form. You must have an abstract that maybe is just this large. It can only have, say, 150 words. Maybe you need to provide keywords, or you need to provide a set of highlights for the article. If you're preparing tables, they give you advice about all that. Now, this might seem quite onerous in some ways, but if you are going to send your article to this journal, if you don't follow this advice, the journal will send the article back to you and ask you to prepare it in the way that is set out in this guide for authors. So I would encourage you to look at the journals that you are thinking you will publish in, and then go and seek out their websites and seek out their advice, and also realize that some of this advice is in the way of requirements. You must do these things before they will accept your article for review. Some of those websites are very detailed and just need to work through them slowly so that you get everything right. So publishers, the commercial publishers that publish many journals, they will provide you with advice which you should follow. Now, there are also professional associations that provide you with advice. And in the field in which I research, in cognitive psychology and educational psychology, one of the professional associations is the American Psychological Association. And they have very good sources of advice, little booklets for advice about reporting on qualitative research in psychology. They have another booklet which focuses on the reporting of quantitative research. So those are, I think, worthwhile having in your libraries, in the university library or your departmental library, or if you're able to get hold of a copy, they give you very good advice. So that's in psychology, the American Psychological Association also publishes a publication manual. You may be already familiar with the publication manual. It's one of the major formats for publishing academic research. It's usually abbreviated to APA. So if you look at, say, if you use the source called Google Scholar, if you're looking for papers, you will see that when you want to get a citation for an article on Google Scholar and you click on the cite button, one of the ways of setting out citations is called APA. Now, this publication manual is also a very good source of advice. And I'm just going to pick out a couple of things in the next couple of slides. They do set out very detailed ways, advice upon what you should report in your papers. So this is with regard to the describing the participants or the data source selection process. How did you select that? You must tell the readers that. And you'll see here, in many places in this book, they give you explicit guidance. They also, in the same publication manual, give you advice about quantitative research and what you must describe about sampling procedures, how you got the group of people you involved in your research, how large that was, and what are the qualities of that sample, the size and the power that gives you to conduct, say, a particular form of statistical analysis. So that's very good advice. They also give you very detailed advice about structuring an article. And I've just picked out here one section related to what's called transitions. And these, as we see from this first sentence here, to improve continuity and flow in your writing, check transitions between sentences, paragraphs, and ideas to ensure that the text is smooth and clear rather than abrupt or disjointed. So this is just, as you see down the bottom of that page, some words that they suggest that between two sentences, it might be useful to say, use the word then, or use the word next, or we use the word since, or use the word therefore. So this these seem very specific things focusing just on words, but these transitions are very important because they help you improve the continuity and flow in your writing. So again, I suggest that this booklet, and I have my copy, which I use in everything I write. I use my copy of the publication manual, and I would suggest that that's even for areas, if you are not writing in psychology, it has good advice for you in writing in many areas. There would be some things you would not pay attention to if you were not publishing using the APA system, but there would be some value in reading some of those things, like this work on transitions. Now, I wonder whether anybody has sent Eva a question yet about any of that.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So you're going to take care with the design of your research. I would use a group in setting out to start the writing process, and I would continue that throughout the writing process. And remember that in the fields in which you're going to publish, the publishers have good advice to give you, and some of it is more than advice, some of it is a requirement. So if you're going to write a paper and you want it to be considered by that journal, you must write it in a particular form. And if you follow that form, it prevents you from sending off a paper and then having it sent back by the publisher who says it's not in the appropriate form. So that will, if it's not in the appropriate form, it will just slow down the process of getting published. My next point is to use the examples that we have available from people who are good writers. And a way to translate good writer is to think about papers that you have read in your field that are very easy and clear and informative. And I'm going to focus upon a paper in the next section of this talk, written by somebody who is a leader in our field, who I think gives us some very good examples of how to organize a paper. So on the screen at the moment, I'll allow you some time just to read this, but I'm wanting to know if you think it is clear what this research is about. So take a couple of minutes to read through that. All right, let me ask if there's anybody who would like to say something about whether they think that is a clear abstract. And if they think it is a clear, if you think it is a clear abstract, just point out some things that you find easy to understand.
think it's quite hard to follow the abstract, isn't it?
You find it hard to follow, Yulina?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
It is in a very, it's in a field in which I work.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because there is no information about participants there. Like how many?
We could, that could be added, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I don't know. Probably other participants can have their opinions.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Maybe Bu Aulia from Poltech, isn't it? It's just Polytechnic UNP, Politeknik Negeri Pontianak. Silahkan Bu. Do you have an idea? Yeah, Politeknik Negeri Pontianak.
All right. Well, all right. We'll and this may be some of the. I'll tell you what I think are some of the strengths of this, but be aware that this is a field in which I work commonly, so I know a lot about this field, but it tells us something that there is if you ask students to imagine, to form an image, this tends to help their processing, which means that it helps them to learn more. These people in this paper, they did 2 experiments which investigated what happened when you gave these prompts and the students were learning from a scientific text. And they had a number of groups, a control group, an imagery group, or another group, other groups, and they got a certain set of results that they found that the prompts helped transfer and retention, and that differed between the groups. So some groups did not benefit as much as others. So there is a conclusion of what message we should take away in that last sentence. So this is a summary of in a short time, and that's what an abstract is. This is the issue in the first sentence, setting up the issue for people. If you are interested in whether it helps to imagine spatial arrangement of elements, we find out in the last sentence that generally that does help. We're going to read in this paper 2 experiments, and students who were involved were set up into various groups, and we get a set of results which are expressed in a quantitative way as effect sizes, and some of them were, the groups did better than others. All right, for the work that I do, I find that quite helpful. Now, I'm not sure whether this is going to be useful for us at the moment, but I asked you to write a sentence. And I asked you to send that sentence to somebody else. I wonder whether there is anybody who would like to comment on the sentence that they received. Presumably, particularly if you found the sentence to be very clear. Is there anybody in our group that has found what they think is a clear sentence? They would just say why they think it is clear. Maybe that is too difficult to do at the moment in terms of the technology, but we'll see. So let me ask Dr. Yulina. When you wrote your sentence, Yulina, when you look back at it now, do you think it is a clear sentence indicating the research that you want to undertake? Just your sentence.
My sentence? I
Yeah.
think, yeah, maybe. I think so. Because I read my sentence, right? So, and then I wrote my sentence. So I think it's clear for myself.
It's clear, righto. What is the feature that you find is most clear about it? Why do you think it is a well-expressed research question?
Because I think it's straight away asking or guiding what my research will be.
Yep. And does it, it indicates a field of theory? Is it a conceptual field?
I guess.
Yeah. What field would that be? What field do you think you would be doing your research in?
Child and family studies.
Righto. Does it indicate a particular group within that?
Well, yes.
All right. Will we be working with the child and families, or both children and families?
Yes, exactly.
Righto. Okay. And if that's in the sentence, then that's going to help you indicate to the reader what your study is about.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on from that. I want to, this section, I have indicated, I want to draw your attention to ways that writers organize their text. So I want to continue that theme now. This is a opening sentence of an article. Consider a text that explains how the respiratory system works, such as shown in Appendix A. What can be done to help students learn more deeply so that they are better able to answer transfer questions based on the lesson? So this is the first sentence in an article. Now, I just want to comment on what I think is a good quality about this opening sentence, or opening two sentences. And I think it's important to note here that the writer has set up a question for the reader. What can be done to help students learn more deeply so that they're better able to answer questions? So the writer is giving you, as a reader, a question to keep in mind. I think that's quite a good strategy. It takes me as a reader straight to the issue. Now, when I'm reading an article in a journal, if I'm not interested in this issue, then I won't continue to read that article. So it's helpful in that respect as well. But if I am interested in deep learning, what's going to help students answer questions, more questions, and answer those questions more effectively, then this immediately gives me a good guide as to what this article is about. So that's one of the qualities that you might think about your opening to your article, that it should indicate to the reader exactly what is going to be talked about. And often that's very useful to set up a question. And so this writer has set up a question. What can be done to help students learn more deeply so that they're better able to answer the questions that the teacher sets, say on a test? So the one function of that question is that it immediately orients me as a reader to say, okay, I'm going to now be looking so that this writer tells me what the answer to that question is. That's why I'm going to read the answer, to find out the answer to this question. So that's one good technique for writing an opening to a paper. If that's not clear, let us know. Another way that some writers use, and I have used this myself, is to use a quotation. So here is a quotation that I think is a very, very important quotation. Our complex and rapidly changing world creates a need for self-initiated and self-managed learning. Knowing how to manage one's own learning activities has become, in short, an important survival tool. Now, this is something that is right in the center of the field in which I do my research, managing your own learning. We refer to it as self-regulated learning. So I have used this quote as a way to say to the reader, you're going to read an article that's related to this topic of managing one's own learning activities. So the first sentence I wrote in that article, which is a published article, was the self-management or self-regulation of learning referred to by these authors is a central feature of most contemporary theories of learning and instruction. Now, my question is at the bottom of that slide. Remember earlier on, we looked at some advice from the American Psychological Association publication manual about transitions. I wonder whether you can see any transitions here in this text. See where I have picked up one idea in one paragraph and used it in one sentence and used it in another sentence. Anybody like to make a suggestion?
Ibu Gina from UIN Bukit Tinggi.
We're not picking up that sound.
Yes, sir. I think it's the despite in this evidence, it's the transition.
Yeah. Righto. So in this quotation, knowing how to manage one's own learning, self-managed learning is in the quotation. And here in the start of the article, I have used that same term here, self-management, and I'm now introducing my term, self-regulation. So there is a transition from the use of self-initiated or self-managed learning. I pick up that term and I use it at the start. Sorry. So that's one of the ways in which you can use transitions. There is a term here and you use it again in a following sentence. So I'm trying to make a link between my writing and the argument made by these people. So just going back over those, I think when you think about starting the writing, opening your paper, sometimes one way you can do that is to set up a question. And that's what these writers have done. Another idea would be to use a quotation which you think is a very good representation of the issue that you are focusing on. And I thought this quotation was important because they describe this self-management of learning as a survival tool, which is a very strong argument. And within that, going back to the American Psych Association, the notion of setting up transitions between using a word here and using the same word or a similar word in the next paragraph. That's what meant by transition. All right, this is the article that I'm talking about. It's published in the Journal of Educational Psychology in 2015. And in the field in which I work, this man at the University of California in Santa Barbara is, I find, a very clear writer. And so that's why I would advise you to have a look at some of the techniques. All right, Eva, are you picking up any issues we need to pay attention to?
No.
Not? Righto.
Okay, so the previous abstract is from this journal articles.
Yeah, righto. So no, if people are giving you questions and you want to interrupt with those, let me know. Yep.
All right.
All right. Now, here again, this is focusing on organization, and I want to show you some ways in which this writer, in that article that I've just shown you, sets up a structure, a very precise structure. All right. By the time Zoom has got all its things focused around me, it's hard to see this. Here is what these writers are saying. The present study takes the multimedia principle. Now, that I think that is a way in which the writer tells the reader what is the theoretical field in which this article is going to be. The multimedia principle. So if you want to introduce your reader to the theoretical field, you can see here that these writers have done that straight away. One step further, this present study takes this principle one step further by asking what is highlighted there in yellow. Now there is a statement, a writing move that says, okay, when you're reading this, as writers, we are claiming that we are taking this field one step further. We are making a contribution. And that's an important part of a paper, that you need to explain what the contribution is going to be. What is the new thing you are telling your audience. So if you do a PhD, a key part of the PhD is to have you make a contribution to the field of knowledge. And the same in a paper. A paper is like a small PhD. So there's the second point I would make, that it tells you what theoretical contribution will be made to the field. A third point I would point out is these writers are explicit about what the goal of the present study is. If you want to find out what they aimed to do, what the objective was, they are telling you what that is in this paragraph, in this sentence. So there, those words there are very explicit, and I think ones that you might use in your writing. The goal of the present study, or the goal of the present research, or the aim of the present paper. It is explicit. And then they take that further where I've got number 4, we aim to test this. And in the fifth point I'd make about that piece of writing is they are saying that this is the gap that they will fill. The relative lack of research on the imagination principle, there is a relative lack of research, and our paper is motivated by this. We want to fill that gap. So this, on the left-hand side, this point 5 is an important part of any research paper. What is the contribution that you are going to make to our field of knowledge? Say in Eulina's case, she is going to write a paper about child and family studies. And so the paper must explain within that broad field, what is the contribution that Eulina's paper is going to make. That's a very important way. So here we see what I refer to as structuring statements. The writer structures the text so that it is explicit, and it takes you to say, starting from the theory, the multimedia principle, they're going to advance one step further, and they're going to set up a specific goal and test a particular idea. And they're doing that because they think there's a relative lack of research, there's a gap. So those writers are setting up very clear structure, in my view. All right, let me take you now to the opening paragraph in their literature review. This is the literature review section of the paper. And I think they have some useful ways, useful techniques that we could use. So I'll just read this. This study on the imagination principle is motivated in part by recognition that the potentially powerful role of mental imagery in human learning, memory, and cognition has been examined across a variety of research literatures, including spatial cognition, verbal learning, memory mnemonics, and educational psychology. Now, these are all terms that are related to the field in which this is written and in which I work. But so don't worry particularly about what each of these terms mean, but I want to pay particular attention to the way that this one sentence structures what's going to come next in the article. So this is the opening paragraph, and it has an impact. So here I have just highlighted these words. They have said that this has been examined across a variety of research literatures, including one, the yellow one, the green one, the purple one, and the red one. And what happens next is they start to write a paragraph on the yellow. So after this opening paragraph, we see a paragraph on the yellow, we see another paragraph then on the green, we see another one on the purple, and we see another one on the red. So if we just go back, I'm not sure whether we can see that in this article. No, we can't see it there, but so what my point here is that in the latter part of this section, they have put down a topic, another topic, another topic, and another topic, 4 topics. And then in the following section of the article, they have written a paragraph about this topic. And the next paragraph is about this topic. And the next paragraph is about this topic. And the next paragraph is about this topic. And so I'm suggesting here that they have used the way they have structured this paragraph to set up what happens in the next paragraphs. So I hope that makes sense, that point, that when we talk about structuring, organizing the writing, setting up a structure, you can see here that they have used this sentence to say, we want to write about this and this and this and this. And so we tell the reader that this is what we're going to write about. A final point I'd make about that is in this last one where they say, in educational psychology, 2 branches. So this is another way in which they set up structure, because what do you think is going to happen after they've written 2 branches? We're probably going to get them a section of the text which refers to one of these, and then the next section of the text refers to the second one. So this expression here, 2 branches, is a further structure. All right. I wonder whether there are any questions coming in about any of that, Yulina.
There are a couple of questions, but not related to the structure. Probably I just postpone it. I just hold it until the end of the session.
Right. Okay. So here we find the major point I'm trying to make here is that when you set up your writing, you can set up the structure within the text, the structure that will follow. So you can introduce, say, 4 terms here, and then you find that there is the following text. You can write about that one and that one and that one and that one. It's a fairly simple way to organize that. All right. This is another thing that follows on. How might we set up that structure? My suggestion here is to, before you start writing a text, prepare a detailed outline of your paper, what you're going to argue. And there is a part in the Microsoft Word program that is in the View menu, which is called Outline View. And I'm going to show you that. But if you give your outline of your argument to your colleagues or to your writing group, they should understand your argument. If they cannot understand your argument, that's very useful feedback for you. So I use this for my PhD students. If they can show me the argument they are making in outline view, then I am satisfied, because the outline will structure their writing. So this is a way to get structure and show that the sequence of arguments is clear. And that generally means that if you get the right structure, then writing the text is very, very quick. So let's focus on this. In the view menu, there is one view that you can have that is called outlining. This is in Word. If you use Word, in the view menu, there is a particular view that is called outlining. And what I've got here is a paper that I'm writing at the moment. I'm using the outline. So don't pay too much attention to what I'm arguing here. But what I want to show you is that you see these arrows here. You can move things between different levels. You'll notice up here that when I click on the title on this one, sorry. Is that going to work? That's not going to work. Right. This one that's furthest to the left is level 1. And as you go in, this is level 2, this is level 3, this is level 4, this is level 5. And if you're going further, this is level 6. So you can say, okay, this is the title of my argument. I'm going to write an introduction and focus for the paper. Okay, what's the introduction? I'm going to mention this issue, and I'm going to use that reference when I refer to this issue. I'm going to write a third issue and a fourth issue, and I'm going to explain this fourth issue by making an argument about that, which has 2 subsections, the existing explanations, one about beliefs and one about self-efficacy. And then I'm going to say what is the additional explanation. And that's what my argument is going to be about. Now, if this argument follows logically, I should be able to write the introduction to my paper. I should be able to write an effective introduction. I find that quite a useful tool that can help me structure an argument. I would recommend that you have a look at that, go to the view menu, click on the outlining view, and you can see that if you think this argument here actually should be up here, you can easily just move it up. It's very handy. If you, in this slide here, now I have applied that maybe to a whole paper. So I've got to have a title, I've got to have the abstract. In the introduction, I've got to mention a focus issue. I want to relate that to the theory, and I want to identify the research gap. And then I'm going to write a literature review, which is going to have a number of theoretical issues. And for that theoretical issue, the first is this, the second is that. And in fact, we got some known writers here who wrote a paper in 2018 on my theoretical issue 1. And this is Dianti who wrote that. And this is Darwin, and this is Nanang who wrote on that. Then the next section of my paper is going to be about the research questions that I'm having, the method, the results, the discussion, the limitations, and the conclusion. So I'm trying to outline my paper. Outlining, I think, is a key first step in writing. Either outline a section and write that section, and then go on and write another section. But if you've got the outline structure clear, the paper will be clear. So if you can set out your argument clearly, the writing of that argument should result in a clear text. So that's a tool that I think helps you set up that structure. So when we talked about ways of structuring, you could imagine that these people, if they used outlining, they had one of their sections was on this, one was on that, one was on that, one was on that. And so they then went and wrote all those. All right. We're getting near the end now. It's important that you have your first draft of your paper read by your colleagues. Always important to have either your reading group or your writing group. And in particular, I would also ask one of your colleagues who's an experienced writer to also review that draft. So if I write a paper, I send it around to my research group and they tear it apart. They provide all the suggestions that we need. So that's why I say, try to get, ask the members to be critical and constructive. So if they see a problem, that means we want them to suggest a solution. Now, this happens because many papers you will write as a member of a group. You might not write just on your own, but if you have a group, I would encourage you to use if you've used a writing group, to use those to also be a reading group and look at your papers. And if you have a more experienced colleague, a senior person in your department who is a experienced publisher, I would ask that person to also read and give you comments. After you've had those comments, you might then prepare the article in a final form and send it off for submitting to a journal. After you submit the paper to a journal, of course, you can get a number of responses. I've had all these responses. Yes, Dr. Lawson, thank you for your paper. As you'll see from the reviews at this time, we do think the paper is suitable. Now, you can also get another response, and let me just change that. And you'll see what happens here. Sometimes it says we do not think it is suitable for publication. So whether they think it is suitable, sometimes you get a yes, sometimes you get a no. Now, I think that happens to most writers. You just need to be aware that you can get those responses. But I would not be discouraged by that. What I would do is most journals will send you reviews, and they are generally intended to help you revise the paper. And so I would do that, take those suggestions, revise the paper, submit it to another journal. Sometimes you get a different response which says, yes, we think it's okay, but we want you to make some revisions. So then I would take the suggestions, make the revisions that you agree with, and then send it back to the publisher. So it's important to just be prepared that when you submit something for publication, it can be not accepted. And it's just, you know, a funny part of our lives as academics that we sometimes spend 6 months writing a paper, and then we wait for 2 months while they consider it, and they come back and they say no. And we think, oh. But again, this is where talk to your colleagues, and they can help you maybe with the revisions. So I maybe just go back to one of our first slides to summarize. Think about the design. Using a group, I think, is seeing yourself as a person existing in a group that can help you with the research design and the writing and the review. That's why you need a group. And if you think of the process that we all went through when we did a PhD, we had a group. It might have been a small group, just you and your supervisor, but you had a group. Look for information you get from publishers, from good writers. I find outlining to be very useful. Check out the paper before you submit it, and then you may have to revise it. So Eva, I think I should stop there.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Professor Lawson. So I think I have like additional comments after the G section that you said, like, submit the paper and be prepared for different outcomes, but don't get upset when you get declined by the journal article, by the journal, I guess. All right, thank you, Professor Lawson. So I think we already have a couple of questions here.
Right.
Let me read them for you. Right. The first question is from Dr. Rosalie. He's asking, how many research in a year to contribute a good research?
How many papers?
How many? He said how many research, but probably how many research papers? I think in a year. Yeah.
All right. There have to be a number of answers to that. It's not straightforward. It could be that some years you don't write any papers, but it could also be that you write one paper and that paper is regarded as a breakthrough in your field, and that will be sufficient, say, for many years. But universities now more commonly will have suggestions that maybe you, on average, you need to write 2 papers per year or 3 papers per year. I would, I don't know, is that something you've experienced, Julina, that the suggestion comes from the university that you should write a number of papers a year?
Well, in Indonesia, we, I think it's different for each university, but here in IPB, we have a target, yeah, Pak Amir, isn't it, Pak Amir? So we have a target, at least minimum 1 published international paper, right? Is it true, Pak Amir? I need to confirm to our head of center.
Well,
Isn't it? So at IPB, we have the obligation, like each lecturer, we have the obligation minimum to publish one international journal article. Is that, yeah, is that true, Pamit? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a reasonable response. And remember that when you're managing your department's research, it could be that if you think what happens if, say, might happen in the university in which I work, you might get a grant one year and you get some funding. And so the first year you are mainly gathering data. The second year you might be using that data and writing up. So the first year, maybe you don't write so many, but the second year you might write 4 papers. And so over those 2 years, you've averaged 2 papers per year. In this university, it is the general suggestion is that on average 2 papers would be a reasonable output. It wouldn't be the best output because some people might write 5 papers in 1 year.
Yeah.
Writing 2 is generally here regarded as quite good, and that needs to be related to the experience of the academic. Maybe somebody starting off might not write 1 in the first year, but might write 1 in the second year, and that would be fine.
Yeah, I think so. So I remember when I work at UQ, my colleagues said, oh, this year I published none of articles, but then, the last year I published non-articles, but this year I published around 7. That's because it's not just right away this year she published everything, but it's just like cumulative from the last 3 years, right? So the process, I guess, it's like that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Professor Lawson, the second question is coming from Bapak Ahyar. He's asking, is there any shortcut way to send my manuscript without gathering anyone's opinion before? So means that probably he doesn't have any group to share. Like it's common here. We usually don't have that research group. It's like very rare here. So everyone like very busy. So he's asking any shortcut way to send the manuscript without having any opinion from other people.
Well, yes, you of course you can do that. Yes. Then you must be your own critic. You must be your own reviewer. So research and writing groups at my university, not everybody is in a writing group.
Okay.
But we find that if people are in writing groups, the general productivity of the department increases. And that's why I think it's important to have, say, the senior academics, say the professors, helping junior staff by taking part in a research group. Now, you might set up a writing group, as I said before, just for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then if you can get 4 papers out of that 6 week, 4 papers that are better than they would have been, that's why I think the writing group is good. But the professor who, or the doctor who wrote sent that question is quite right. Sometimes if you have no suitable colleagues, you must be your own reviewer. That's why I would try to, as you go to conferences, identify people who work in your area, who do similar sorts of research, and go and chat to them and say, look, if I write a paper, would you be prepared to give me some feedback? And if you do that, I will do that for you. And you can do that. Sometimes I have colleagues overseas, and I will send my paper to a colleague overseas in Canada or in England or in Germany, and they will send me the feedback. So your group, you only probably at the minimum you need one person in your group. If you can find one other person who you can get to review, I think it's a big help, particularly before you send it off for submission.
Okay.
But it is a
So-
question. Yeah.
Okay, so means that we can set up just a temporary group, a research group for about like 3 weeks or maybe just 1 month to work together.
Yeah.
And to share how to publish a journal articles. Is that in the same field, something like that?
That's right.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
depending upon your workload, you might have a period where you can find 1 hour a week, but then after 3 or 4 weeks, you have to stop. But if you can keep going, I think what I found is that we then get more papers produced by staff.
All right. Okay. So we should take account the suggestion, I guess, because it will be very practical for everyone to share and then to strengthen each other. I think how to publish a good paper in the same field. All right. The next question is coming from Ibu Sari. She's asking, bahasa Indonesia, how can we find a new issue? I mean, like she's asking, how is the strategy for us to find a new topic or a new issue to write a manuscript? So it's like a different issue from the previous one or from other topics that have been existed. And then the second one, how many subjects, research subjects, like participants to be a good paper? Is that have to be more than 100 participants or like what, like something like that?
Righto. Yeah. So the first of those questions, the issues, that's where I think there are a number of ways in which you can do that. One is through reading.
Right.
All right. I read an article, and at the end of the article, I still have some questions that are not answered. These people have argued that the way to get students to do this is to do A and B. But I want to know why would you not get students to do C?
Okay.
And that gives me an idea about something that I can do some research on. So reading what is going on in the field, what is going on in the research literature is one way. Another way, particularly, say if you're thinking of your field, Julina, in child and family studies, or in my field in teaching, is to go and talk to what the people involved, talk to some families and talk to some people who are working, say, in early childhood centers or in shelters or whatever the field is, and just get a feel from them about what are the issues that they are facing, that they do not have answers to. What are the issues that are being faced? If let's say we were working in the field of medicine or nursing, I don't know what's happened in your hospitals in Indonesia with the COVID virus, but in Australia, the hospitals have been very, very busy. There are many more people in hospital. Now, those hospitals, the nurses and the doctors and the support staff, they will have issues that are very critical. And going and talking to some of those people who are experiencing some of those issues probably will give you a range of topics. Another issue that has arisen here is talking to university staff who are not allowed to have their students come to the university, or teachers are not allowed to have their students come to the school. But the teachers and the university lecturers are still expected to teach. So what are the issues they face? Going and talking to some of those people will probably give you a good set of issues that can be investigated. I think since that time we've seen in the last couple of years a lot of increase in research on online teaching, which we did not see before because we did not have to do online teaching.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to numbers, there is no magic number that you need. It depends upon your research question. It's possible to do very good and important research on one participant. It could be one, maybe a case study of a mother who is experiencing poverty and is finding it difficult to look after her children. One case might be produce a very important paper. So in qualitative research, single case studies are quite relevant. Single case studies can also be done in quantitative research, and there is a body of advice and a literature related to single case studies in quantitative research. For other groups, let's say if you are doing quantitative research and you want to set up an experimental study where you have an experimental group of students and a control group of students, then generally you can find out from the literature how many students you will need to have what is called statistical power. So if you wanted to investigate in a quantitative sense how many students you would need, you need to find out and understand and talk to somebody about, say, statistical power. It's the power that you have to find a particular effect. And that might tell you that you need at least 25 in each group. Or if you are doing a study, say, using a factor analytic approach, for the very first time, you might need 400 participants. So it's something where to answer that question of how many, it depends upon your research question and the research type of research you are doing. Could be one, it could be 400.
Okay, so but for the quantitative study, so we can check for the power analysis. Is that, Professor Wilson? Yes, depends on the.
It's important to specify your research question and find out whether that is something where you can make a contribution to the field through, say, a single case study of one person.
Okay.
And you will find research, particularly in the area of qualitative research, where you can follow through one person. You can also find quantitative research done with quite small numbers, Again, that is generally labeled as single case research. And there is a body of literature on single case research design, which gives you good advice of how to design that research.
Okay, all right. Okay, move to the next question here. There is a question from Busamsia. Is asking, in a writing group, is it only consist of the same field writers or can be mixed with other field? And then from Pak Rihandoyo, it's like a related question. Do you think online reading group of researchers on the same area would turn into a co-authorship instead? So I think it's an interesting question from Pak.
Yeah, that's good. So the research groups, I think, are useful. One of my colleagues has for years run a research group of PhD students, a writing group of PhD students from all different fields, right? All working in the broad field of education, but some are writing in a quantitative research tradition and some are writing in a qualitative research tradition. And she runs that group generally for quite a long period of time each year. They meet every couple of weeks. The students, different students make different presentations. The students find that very, very helpful. So they can be members of the group that do not work exactly in your field of research. I'm sure if you, Lena, I sent my research design to you, you could give me useful feedback, even though you are not working in self-regulated learning, you are working in child and family studies. But if you could not understand my research outline, then probably I have something I need to do to improve that. So I think you can have many different people with different research interests in the one group. Now, what was the second issue? Oh, online. I think you could run the online, an online group very effectively.
Okay.
So,
but what about the co-authorship? So
well,
what do you think?
Yeah, that co-authorship is an issue that it is not a precise field, but generally, again, you will find in the professional associations like the American Psychological Association, there is a statement that anybody who makes a significant contribution to the research should be involved as a co-author. So what might a significant contribution involve? It might be helping you to design the research.
Right.
It might be, certainly it would involve if somebody is helping you do the writing and they're doing some of the writing for you, they must be involved as co-authors.
Yeah.
So there are a number of ways in which they can. There are some explicit statements that are available on what co-authorship should be involved. One, I think, is the Montreal Declaration. If you look that up, I think you would find that that would be available, and that generally comes, it's not just in the field of social sciences, but in any research field. So the American Psychological Association uses that term significant contribution. Mm-hmm. So in designing the research, in helping you plan it, in helping you gather some data, in helping you analyze that data, in helping you do the writing, those could all be people, different people who would be co-authors.
Okay. So means that if we just ask somebody to read our paper and then give inputs. Probably we can put their names on the acknowledgement, right, Professor?
You can do that if the contribution they make is a significant contribution. If they have caused you maybe to change your arguments significantly, then I would involve them as co-authors. If they are just say editing your paper for you, or they helped you get some participants, then you might acknowledge them in the acknowledgements. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So now we have the last question here from Pak Ramli. He's asking, I know that there are qualitative and quantitative approach research. My question is, how about the hypothesis and research question? I mean the hypothesis in quantitative research and research question in qualitative one.
A hypothesis in the quantitative and in the qualitative, is that?
No, I think he's asking about how to develop the hypothesis in quantitative research and then research question in qualitative.
Right. Okay. I think if we go back to one of the earlier questions, where do you pick up the idea to do the research? If you say, I suggested at least two different ways. One is doing some reading and one is doing some talking to people. Then during the reading, you might also see that the argument that a particular writer has made, you think is only, it's not really complete, it's only partially complete. There could also be an alternative explanation. And you want to then do some research to find out whether that alternative explanation is in fact accurate. And in that way, you set up a hypothesis that if you did this, you would get that effect. So I set up a hypothesis in a quantitative research that if I train people to, in the article that we looked at today, if I train people to form images as they are reading a scientific text, they will be advantaged. They will do better in the performance than students who are not asked to form those images. So there's my hypothesis. And I can work out a way to test that hypothesis statistically. In a qualitative sense, you could also have a similar, maybe not as precise a hypothesis, but you can still have a hypothesis that the factors that are influencing these families are largely factor A, factor B, and factor C. Now let me go and find out whether in fact there is any evidence that the families that I'm interested in are influenced by factor A and by factor B and by factor C. And all of the families are influenced by those three factors. Now you might go and in a way test out that explanation, and you find that some families are affected by factor A, but not at all by factor B and factor C. So you have in a way tested out again your hypothesis in qualitative research. You find there's no evidence that in the families that you work with and you study qualitatively, that all three factors are present for every family.
Okay. All right. I think every question has been answered, and we are nearly there. I mean, nearly at the end of the session. So before we close this session, or I hand over the session to our Master of Ceremony. So there are not couple, there are so many things on my notes here that we can take away from this seminar. So
Yep.
yeah, so first of all, how to write a good publication, of course, begins with our research, right? So we have to have our research design, and then we have to have logically order appropriate research procedure, etc., and to have a robust research design, and then have something good to write. How we can know we have something good to write? Of course, we have to have many readings, sharing, and also what else? Conferencing. You mentioned about that, and
Yep.
also we can also use the strategy having a reading group, you already explained it in more detail what reading group is, can be online, etc. And then use advice from publisher. Go to the website, check what the requirement is, because sometimes we don't see what the requirement, what the format, and etc. Sometimes we just write and prepare our paper according to our templates, our own templates, and that's not appropriate for the journal publisher. And
Yep.
then seek the support from the professional association. Maybe they can give advice from to us about our field. And then the most important here is outline our arguments, how to organize our paper, and then you have like a very good strategies there, tips like what we have to write on theoretical context, and then what we have to consider about the contribution of our paper to the theoretical context, goals for the study, specific objective for the study, and the gap that we can fill using our study. And the last one here, like submit paper and be prepared for different outcomes, means that if our paper get accepted, just go revise and resubmit. But once we get declined, don't get upset. Just like revise the paper and submit to another journal that may be appropriate for our paper.
Yeah.
I think that's all. Our seminar today, very productive and very informative. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Mike Lawson, and also Bapak Dr. Amiruddin Saleh as our head of center. And thank you. That's all from me. And I hand over to our beloved master ceremony, Ibu Haja Irma. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih kepada moderator kita, Ibu Dr. Yulina Eva Riani, SP.MED. Acara selanjutnya, penyerahan piagam secara virtual kepada narasumber dan moderator akan disampaikan oleh Kepala P2SDM LPPM IPB University. Kepada Bapak Dr. Amiruddin Saleh, kami silakan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Mike Lawson.
You're welcome.
For the insightful material. Very good.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we can implement all lesson that you have explained before. Once again, thank you, Professor, and we hope we can work together in another event.
Sure.
And beforehand, we want to give a symbolic certificate.
Thank you very much.
Yes, maybe the committee, Pak Jubair. Hello, Pak Jubair. Can
Yes.
help to capture us?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. Yes. Please. Thanks a lot. Silakan kepada Ibu kita, Dr. Eva. Sertifikatnya juga, Pak Jubair.
Terima kasih Pak Kapus.
Ya, Bu Eva, mohon diterima.
Alhamdulillah.
Ya, oke, thank you ya.
Terima kasih Pak Kapur.
Mudah-mudahan profesor kita bisa kita ajak terus
Ya,
sampai kita melakukan international seminar.
amin. Siap,
Ya,
Prof.
siap. Silakan Bu Haja Irma. Thank
Ya,
you.
baik. Terima kasih. Baiklah, kita lanjutkan dengan foto bersama. Kepada Bapak Jubair, kami silakan.
Baik, Bapak Ibu, silahkan kameranya dibuka. Kita sambil menunggu. Siap-siap Bapak Ibu, kita foto secara acak. Gayanya matangkan dan
Gaya matangkan.
siap.
Ada ya Pak nih.
2, 3. Pes selanjutnya siap. 1, 2, 3. Tahan Bapak Ibu. 1, 2, 3. Lagi. 1, 2, 3. Sekali lagi. 1, 2, 3. Baik, terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Ya, sama-sama Pak.
Terima kasih
Ya, thank you.
atas pengambilan fotonya.
Ya, terima kasih.
Kami hormati. Dengan demikian, acara telah selesai dilaksanakan.
Mohon nanti sertifikatnya Bu dikirimkan.
Bagi kita semua. Sampai jumpa di webinar.
Ya, siap.
Jangan lupa Bu,
Sertifikat
sertifikatnya, Bu.
dikirim.
Dikirim Bu,
Siap.
Pak,
Lewat
sertifikatnya
email, Pak.
Pak. Terima
Lewat
kasih
Siap,
banyak.
siap.
Baik,
Ya,
sampai
Pak.
jumpa di webinar selanjutnya. Saya
Ya.
selaku pembawa acara mengucapkan terima kasih dan mohon maaf jika ada kesalahan. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, Waalaikumsalam Bu.
Waalaikumsalam.
Pak Nohar, isi emailnya jangan sampai salah. Nanti
Sudah Pak, Bu, sudah saya isi kan baik.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Prof. Lawson. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
next.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay,
And to
thank you. Thank you,
everyone.
Professor.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
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 Keep safe.
Oh, okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Yulina.
Bye, Prof.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Bye-bye.
Bapak Ibu semuanya.